Hello everyone, a very good morning to all of you. Today is 21st of June and I welcome you all to the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, in the today's video, we are going to discuss entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper. We'll take all the articles along with their background as well as the way forward in the relevant concepts. And today we are celebrating the World Yoga Day. So the World Yoga Day symbolizes the India's soft power, symbolizes India's long and enriching traditions. So let's start with the overview of the newspaper first of all. So guys, here the first article that we can see is Supreme Court clears deployment of central forces in Bengal for the local polls. Assam Rifles plan to secure lifelines of Manipur Hills. Okay, now guys, basically with respect to the local polls in the Bengal, there are the security issues that are going on. For that thing, central forces are being deployed. And in this particular direction, also the controversies between the state government and the central government has also come out. However, we are not required to really go too much in detail in these particular articles because it has become more of a political issue. Okay, so moving on, then we have PM Modi lands in the US, many events in pipeline. So we have now the Prime Minister is on a state visit of US, and two important agendas would be taken up here in this discussion. Number one is the defense and second is the critical technologies. In the critical technologies, semiconductor, artificial intelligence, regularization, all such kind of a themes would be taken up. Now today do no need to go in this particular article, but as the meet will happen and the important key takeaways will come, we'll take them one by one. After that, moving on, democratic forces must unite to end BJP rule, nothing important. Then city section. Okay, NCCSA is a center's conspiracy to control Delhi by the stealth CM. Guys, we have discussed this particular article many number of times. NCCSA stands for National Capital Civil Service Authority. This was a body that was created by the ordinance by the president, and as per this NCCSA, this body will control the posting transfers of the civil servants in Delhi, and ultimately the lieutenant governor will have the control. Okay, this body will be this body will be led by three people. One will be the chief minister of Delhi and other two will be the senior civil servants. Okay, so it has been said that actually the power again has gone in the hand of the central government, so it is being criticized. However, guys, you are not required to go in the political flair that is going on here, the Aam Aadmi Party versus BJP issue. Okay, then further, moving on, we have then in the regional section, we have largely the political news. Nothing much important has been given. Then these advertisements and all such kind of things are there. Okay, so moving on, and again, advertisements, etc. We'll reach to editorial page. Now on editorial page, the first article, a people of an emerald isle waiting with Dusras. So basically, guys, this particular article is talking about that the Indian Tamils who are living in Sri Lanka, what are the things that they should focus upon. You are not required to go too much in detail in this particular article, but the relevant points will take. Then further moving on, Rawalpindi gains the upper hand in troubled Pakistan. Now, guys, the article is talking about the basically the internal crisis going on in Pakistan. Okay, how the military and the political issues. Okay, so again, please don't go in this particular article. When we talk about the India and the neighborhood for GS paper number 2, fine, that is an important thing, but the internal political crisis between the different political parties that are going on, that is not important for the examination. So much important substance is not there in this particular article for the exam point of view. Then semiconductor, the fab. Now this is an important article. We'll see this for the examination, a good article. A churning in Andhra Pradesh, political articles, okay, talking about the political stakes, okay, different political parties, for example, YSR Congress party, and what are the political stakes for all of them, they are being discussed. UPI payment relief for users, a headache for banks. So guys, we have seen this particular thing that over the years, the UPI transactions in India have increased, but the point is that the numbers of transactions are increasing, but the amount of money that is being transferred, it has not changed that much, though it has increased. But the concern is that low ticket transactions, they have increased so much, and it is putting a lot of burden on the UPI architecture. So now the banks are coming out with the daily limits as how many number of transactions you can make and how much amount of transaction you can make. So all that information has been given here. Then moving to text and context, the climate lawsuit against the Delta Airlines. Now, we are not required to see the case that was filed against Delta Airlines, but the concept behind this, that's the carbon offsetting, that we'll understand. Then further, what is the contention between Coal India and CCI? Okay, so basically, guys, what this issue is all about, this issue is this, that recently the Competition Commission of India has slapped a fine on the Coal India because it has been said that the Coal India is behaving like a monopoly. Coal India is behaving like a monopoly, and fair competition is not there. It is setting its own prices with respect to the coal. It is setting its own prices with respect to the coal, and also when it is selling the coal to the different players, okay, differential price is also being charged, fine, which cannot be justified in a free market. So this is something that has happened. Then the Coal India appealed to the Supreme Court that why we are being slapped with the fine, and the Supreme Court also held that even if you are Coal India, okay, still you have to follow the norms of the fair and free competition. Okay. Then moving on, anxiety disorder and its treatment, the stigma remains. Okay. Basically, guys, here how the basically the Freud's original anxiety neurosis and all such things have been discussed. Okay, again, guys, for the exam point of view, much important substance is not there in this particular article. You are not required to do the PhD on this thing. However, one thing is important is that when we talk about the anxiety and other depression and other mental issues, they have not been given too much of attention, but now the time is high that we need to give more focus on the mental health. Fine. Then moving on in this particular direction, Supreme Court refuses urgent hearing on plea seeking army protection for cookies. Now we are seeing that from more than 1 month this article is going on with respect to the Manipur crisis that is there. Okay, then further moving on in this particular direction, guys, here you can see one article, India supplied 160 nations with COVID jabs, Anurag Thakur. Now this is an example of India's vaccine diplomacy, vaccine matri. So just as an example, you can use it. Okay. Then further moving on in this particular direction, India and US share values of democracy, diversity. Then further in this particular direction, we'll be moving on. Central teams to visit states reeling under heat stress. Childline 1098 to be merged with 112 in 9 states. Again, guys, please don't make notes of these such kind of an articles for exam point of view. Here there is one article, India's first mRNA vaccine against Omicron approved. With this, we'll see. Nearly 2,300 babies adopted in 9 months. We'll see this particular article. Not the number of children that are adopted is important, but recently the changes in the basically Juvenile Justice Act came. So those changes we'll understand. Then further moving on in this particular direction, US urges China for military talks despite rebuff to Blinken. So now the USA and China are trying to normalize their relations, okay, and in this particular direction, this is a positive thing. And now the military engagements are also being mooted by the China. Then further moving on, Chinese premier holds talks with German Chancellor. Palestinian attacker kills 4 in West Bank. One thing, guys, understand that when we talk about the world page or international page, every article, every statement by any leader, etc., is not important. You need to see only those articles which are either related to the Indian foreign policy or those developments which will directly be having an impact onto the Indian foreign policy, India's international or national interest. Okay, so every statement, every development that is going on is not important. Okay, now moving on to the next page. NABFID 60,000 crore loan book by March 2024. So National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development is aiming that 60,000 crore rupees will be disbursed, okay. Now, guys, this particular thing is important. Why? Because as more and more loans will be disbursed for infrastructure, it will lead to a multiplier effect. What is this multiplier effect? For example, let's say 100 rupees are being invested in infrastructure. Obviously, a large number of people will get employment. When they'll get employment, they will be given wages. When they will receive the wages, they will spend that money, and by that aggregate demand in economy will increase. That demand will give further push to the economy. Moreover, when we will invest in infrastructure, ease of transportation, logistic cost will go down, and eventually it will be helping the Indian economy in the long run. Okay. However, how many crore rupees are being given in first quarter? How much will be given in next quarter? How much will be given? No need to track basically too much of these data, etc. Then telecom regulator suggests norms for the undersea cables. Okay. So basically, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has issued these norms. Okay. Now, basically, guys, when we talk about the data transfer, much of the data transfer still happens through the physical cables, wires that go under the sea. Okay. Then further, moving on, we have the sports page, and then in the last we have this science page, climate breakdown. So we'll see this particular article as what it is talking about. Now let's discuss all these articles which are actually relevant for our examination one by one in the detail. Okay, so this is the synoptic notes that you can download from the Telegram channel. Okay, and the link for the Telegram channel is given in the description box in YouTube. Just a minute. Yes. So the in every class we start with a GS quotation. So today we'll take the quotation from the Abhijit Banerjee, the Nobel Prize winner. Abhijit Banerjee says, if the rules makes such a difference, then it becomes very important who gets to make them. We talk about that a democracy, a state is governed by rules, it is governed by the laws. So rules and laws are the basic fundamental frameworks which will govern the conduct of the human beings, which will govern the conduct of the society. So as they are so much important, it is always important that whether the people making the rule have their ethics in place or not. So who makes the rule? It is very important. What are their ethical standards? It is very important, so that the laws will be representative of all the interest. You can use this particular idea with the GS paper in the context of GS paper number 4 ethics. GS paper number 4 ethics, we can use this. Now moving on, and let's discuss the first article for the today. So guys, the first article is from the science page that we have taken, and the article reads, climate breakdown, the Arctic Ocean could be ice free by the 2030. Now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3, environment, climate change and its impact, as well as in GS paper number 1, geography or geographical phenomena as well. We can see this particular article. Okay. Moving on in this particular direction, guys, just a minute. Okay. Now, first of all, let me give you some of the basic background information. So basically, guys, it has been predicted by many of the bodies that the Arctic ice and the ice cover, such as in Greenland or even the Antarctica ice, will melt very rapidly in the times to come. Moreover, in even the IPCC, okay, even the IPCC in its 6th assessment report has provided this particular thing, that between 2030 to 2040, 1.5 degrees Celsius 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise will happen. And as per the IPCC, it has been provided that when we talk about the polar regions, for example, the Arctic region, Antarctica region, their temperature rise is happening at even more higher pace. There the temperature rise is happening in the range of 2.5 to 4 degrees Celsius. 2.5 to 4 degrees Celsius temperature rise will happen on the poles. Now, because of this particular thing, the polar ice would be impacted. Now, this particular article is talking about the Arctic region. So here you can see that we have this Arctic Ocean, and this Arctic Ocean, a large part of this Arctic Ocean is permanently covered under ice. It is permanently covered under the snow, ice sheet. Now, recently one report has been published here in Nature Communications, and this particular report provides this particular thing, that the entire Arctic region will become ice free by the summer of 2030. Now let's understand this particular thing in little bit more detail. Now when we talk about the Arctic region, so there is a thin film of frozen seawater, okay, over that entire Arctic region. It expands during the winters and then it shrinks during the summer, and till September it reaches a minimum area. September every year it reaches a minimum area and then again it starts to expand, but never this region has been completely ice free. But now this report is saying that this region will become completely ice free by 2030, and actually there is one particular portion of this particular region which is called as the multi-year sea ice. Multi-year sea ice. Now this is that layer or that region covered by ice which has never been melted. It is permanently frozen. Even in the summers it is frozen. So this is the core region which is always frozen. This multi-year sea ice has also reduced. It is considerably more thicker, it is more stable, but it has also been reduced, and over the past 40 years this region has shrank from 7 million square kilometers to just 4 million square kilometers. Now this number is not important, but the size equivalent to India or size equivalent to 12 United Kingdoms have been lost. This much region under the multi-year sea ice that was there, it has been lost. So this multi-year sea ice is reducing, and by 2030 this entire region will become completely ice free. And this effort is called as Blue Ocean Event. This effort is called as the Blue Ocean Event. So right now, because of the ice, this region appears to be white, but when it will completely be unfrozen, it will be referred to as the Blue Ocean Event. Okay, and the scientists are trying to predict that when it will happen, but it is very much difficult. Why it is difficult? It is difficult because of the two factors. Number one factor is that that the amount of ice, it is influenced by the atmosphere as well as by the oceanic circulation, and the computer models are not able to predict with preciseness that how atmosphere and oceanic circulation will interact together on the ice. So therefore prediction was very much difficult, but now it has been said that by 2030 it will be ice free. Now, why this particular thing is bad, or what are the negative implications that will come out of this development? Now guys, few days back, even we have seen that the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said this thing, that it is good for the transportation point of view, because now the Asian ships that have to reach to the Europe, they have to go through the Suez, and that particular route they have to take. So many of the ships from the Asia, particularly from the side of Japan, they can directly reach to the Europe from the Arctic region, and they will be able to save 3,000 miles of journey, and even that fuel would be saved. So it has been said that from the point of view of the transportation, it is going to be good. But guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the Arctic Sea, it is an important component of the climate system. How? We know this particular thing, that when there are certain regions which are covered under ice, and the reason they are covered under ice is because they are under the ice. Now what I want to say, you might be knowing the concept of the albedo. You might be knowing the concept of the albedo. So albedo is the capacity of a particular surface to reflect back the solar radiation, to reflect back the heat. Now the brighter objects, they will have a good albedo. They will be able to transmit back, they will be able to reflect back large number of solar radiation that is coming. Now when we talk about this Arctic region, as it is covered under the ice, large number of solar radiation is simply being reflected back. Okay, it is not being absorbed in the earth. If this particular region becomes ice free, then basically the ocean, the water, it will absorb a lot of heat. And because of the heating of this particular ocean, what will happen nearby Greenland, the ice sheets, glaciers in the Greenland, they will melt faster. And because of that particular thing, there will be the sea level rise that will happen. Even today, Greenland is one of the major contributor in the rise in the sea level. And then further, that particular thing would be exacerbated. Okay, so over a period of time, it will impact, it will increase the sea level rise. Moreover guys, as the water would be heated, we understand this thing, water also expands on the heating. So by that particular thing also, the sea levels will be impacted. Moreover, as this particular thing will happen, it will impact to a large capacity the circulations, atmospheric circulation, oceanic circulations would be impacted. Fundamental shifts in the ocean's biological activity would come, and problem is that it is a black box. We don't know that how they will be unfolding ultimately and how they will be impacting. So all these particular issues, all these particular challenges would come there. Okay, so this is all about this particular article. I hope that you have understood it. And now moving to the next article. Okay, one doubt I want to address, there is this question comes that, sir, increase the volume of the sound, increase the volume. See, I have seen the video. After the video is processed, fine, I find that the sound is audible and the sound is clear. So please first also see that on your end the sound is not less, or please also see that your earphones etc., if they are properly working, because I have seen the sound issue from my end and I found that it was okay. So please do check that, and if still the issue persists, then please do let me know. I will try to do something. Okay, then further moving on, the climate lawsuit against Delta Airlines. Okay, now first of all, guys, you are not required to go too much in detail in this particular article, but this will see with respect to as a case study for GS paper number 4 environmental ethics. GS paper number 4 environmental ethics. Now, what the issue is all about, let me explain you first. So basically, guys, yes. So basically, when we talk about the Delta Airlines, it is an American airline, and this Delta airline in 2020 declared that it is world's first carbon neutral airline. They have said this particular thing, that they have investing $1 billion on reducing fuel usage and carbon removal techniques. They have become the world's first carbon neutral airline. Now, how? They have said this particular thing, that we have invested a lot in the carbon offsetting. What is carbon offsetting? I will give you one example. For example, guys, I am running a factory, okay, and this particular factory is emitting 100 unit of carbon. Now, how I can be carbon neutral? I can plant the trees which will absorb 100 unit of carbon back. In this particular way, I say that I have become carbon neutral, because the amount of carbon that I emitted, the same amount of carbon I have absorbed at some other place, okay. But at the end of the day, net impact will be zero on the environment. It is called as carbon offsetting. Many things can be done: planting trees, shifting to cleaner fuels. For example, in my factory, earlier I was using coal, now I am using natural gas, which is not that much carbon intensive as the coal is, or I can switch to solar panels. Okay, so these are the different ways. Fine, focusing on funding the carbon capture techniques, this is something by which the carbon can be absorbed back and carbon offsetting can be done. Now, basically, they said this thing that they are going for carbon offsetting, but then the investigation started that show how you are absorbing all the carbon that you have emitted. And it was came out that when we talk about the carbon offsetting program, carbon offsetting program will only be working when you remove or reduce the carbon emissions that wouldn't have been eliminated otherwise. Now, let me help you with the help of an example. Now, guys, suppose there is already a patch of forest. There is a patch of the forest, and in this forest there are so many trees already, they are there. See, even if I would not have done anything, they have absorbed some kind of a carbon. So companies, what they do, they simply say, and they come and they say that we are conserving this forest. Now, what does it mean that you are conserving this forest? Even if you have not done anything, the forest would have conserved the carbon. So this is simply a kind of a greenwashing. Simply, this is a kind of a greenwashing. What is greenwashing? I will come on this particular thing in just few seconds. So basically, what has happened in the Delta Airlines, it has been found that actually what they are doing, they are conserving the forest already. Now the real carbon offsetting would have happened if you have planted entirely new trees at a land which was barren, where there was no trees. So now you have added additional capacity to absorb carbon. In this case, there the carbon offsetting would come. If you are conserving the already existing forest, you are not doing anything new. So this is something that was there. Okay. Now, guys, let's come back to this concept of the greenwashing. So basically, guys, today we have seen this thing that the consumers, they have become climate conscious, and today the consumers, they are more ready to accept the products by a company which say that we are climate sensitive, our products don't have any carbon footprint, and this marketing technique is being exploited negatively by the companies. Fine, this is the green washing. okay, showcasing your products as environmentally friendly even when they are not. And greenwashing is to be controlled. This was a major theme even in the COP27 that was held in 2022 in Egypt. So this is an example of greenwashing that you can take and you can use in your examination. Now moving on to the next article, semiconductor fabrication, semiconductor fab, the unfinished agenda. We'll see this particular article with respect to the GS paper number 3, infrastructure. Infrastructure critical technologies. We can see this particular article. Now, let's see what the article is actually talking about. So basically, first of all, what is the semiconductor? So semiconductor are the thumbnail sized chips which give the computational capacity to the different devices, different equipments. For example, your mobile phone. Your mobile phone has a lot of semiconductors in it. Your laptop has a lot of semiconductors in it. They are the ones responsible for giving the computational capacity to all these electronic devices. Today we see this particular thing that as Internet of Things, as the usage and consumption of the electrical equipments have increased, semiconductors are the critical components which are needed by every country. And India wants to develop the capacity for the semiconductor manufacturing. Now it has also become a strategic reason. Why? Because today we are dependent for semiconductors on the countries such as China, and we know this thing that China has went for the trade weaponization. Particularly fine, China can use that particular thing to its advantage, and we don't want to be too much dependent. So therefore we have come out with the semiconductor manufacturing plan. And in this particular line, already in 2022, government has said that we are coming out with the production linked incentive scheme, in which 73,000 crore rupees of incentive would be given for the semiconductor manufacturing in India. Even the capital subsidy will be given for the semiconductor manufacturing. Capital subsidy means that the support will be given to establish plant, machinery, etc. as well. So 73,000 crore rupees project we have come out with. Now, the article is giving some of the background with respect to the early attempts that the government has taken for establishing the semiconductor plants. Okay, however, no need to go too much in detail in this. Now, for example, in 2007, there was a special incentive package that was announced by the government to deploy the semiconductor manufacturing in India. But then it was not successful. So second attempt was made in the form of a modified SIP, a special incentive package, in 2012. Many industries consortiums were identified, but eventually it was also not successful. And now finally in 2022, we have come out with a new plan for developing the semiconductor manufacturing capability in India. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that when we talk about the semiconductor chips, there is one very important dimension. Fine, Moore's law. Moore's law. What is the Moore's law? Moore's law says that the number of transistors that can be installed in a unit area, it will double. For example, let's say this is a semiconductor chip. Fine, you were able to plant 100 transistors on this semiconductor chip. Within next 18 months, basically the technology will advance at such a rate that it will be possible to plant 200 transistors on the same area. The size of the transistors will shrink. The size of the transistors will be shrink, and even the small transistors will be more efficient. That will happen. So every 18 months, number of transistors that can be planted in a unit area, it will double. So point is that semiconductor chips, they are becoming more small. On a small semiconductor chips, more transistors can be installed. This is the way the technology is progressing. So point is that when we talk about the semiconductor chips, okay, technological advancements will be very rapid. So the plants will become obsolete in very less time. Okay, let's say you bought a computer 2 years back. Today, that computer might have become ancient. Technology is pacing at such a high rate, and that thing applies to the semiconductors also. Now, when we talk about the semiconductor manufacturing, China has a lot of capability, and China started to invest in semiconductors 20 years back. Now, how China did it? First of all, China was backed by the government, and what China did, China acquired hundreds of the loss-making fabrication units from around the world, and on the basis of it, it builds its own fabrication industry. Okay, so loss making fabrication units, it took them, it overtook them, then it revived those units, and around the world China is now manufacturing their semiconductors. Okay, now basically guys, China has a visionary thinking, and in past 20 years it has invested a lot. When the USA realized that China has developed so much of the capabilities, it was too much late, and now the USA and the European countries, they also want to build the capability in the semiconductor. Recently USA has come with the Chips and Science Act, in which they will be investing $40 billion for the semiconductor manufacturing. European Union has also come out with the 7.4 billion euro package, where they will be investing this much money in establishing the semiconductors. Now, guys, when we talk about the what are the problem of establishing a semiconductor fabrication unit, the problem is that basically this technology becomes obsolete very fast, and you have to invest billions and billions of dollars in one fabrication unit. And the point is that you have to recover all that money before the technology becomes obsolete, before the technology becomes redundant. So technology will become redundant in 2-3 years. So all the billions and billions of dollars you invested, you have to take back. So point is that you need to have a kind of a monopoly. You need to have a kind of a monopoly, and because of that particular thing, it is a very risky kind of venture. Okay. Moreover, the next is developing an ecosystem of chip manufacturing at a greenfield location is very much difficult. Okay, establishing entirely a new plant is very much difficult. It is time taking. You need to have lot of skilled workforce. You need to have distilled pure water. So many chemicals, many gases are needed. So many number of times what is done, already existing units, they are upgraded. Okay, this is something that is done. There is also one more way, that is the assembly, testing, packaging and marking. Okay, so what it is nothing but you bring the components from the different places, you assemble at one place. This could be also be one more type of a fabrication unit, but the in terms of the value, it has less worth than the actual chip making from the scratch. Okay, now what lessons we can learn from the China? So we can learn from the China that what China did, China acquired the loss making fabrication units and then remodeled them, then again made them, fine, invested them. So point is that India also, rather than building the fabrication units from the greenfield, we need to focus more on the existing fabrication units around the world, and we need to invest in them. Okay, now there is a Chinese saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. We missed the bus 20 years ago, but now India has to act immediately. We cannot lose the time now. So this is guys all about this particular article. Now, moving to the next article, a people of an emerald isle waiting with Dusras. Now this particular article guys will see with respect to the issues related to the Indian diaspora. Now Indian diaspora is an important topic mentioned in the GS paper number 2. Indian diaspora is the people of Indian origin who are living in the other countries. So every country has their diaspora. Diaspora, Chinese people living in other country. Indian diaspora, Indian people living in other country. Now, when we talk about Indian diaspora, we have one of the biggest diaspora in the world, and this article is talking about the Indian Tamilians who are living in Sri Lanka. The article is talking about the 5 strategies or 5 lessons that the Indian Tamilians living in Sri Lanka should adopt. Now, basically guys, number 1, they are saying this particular thing, that there have been the issues that since long time there were the grievances that the Indian Tamilians, they have been discriminated in the Sri Lanka. Okay, so the article is saying this particular thing, that immediately the Indian Tamilians living in Sri Lanka, they need to create their identity of distinct and equal Lankans. Okay, they need to develop the professional expertise. They need to develop the professional expertise by which they can be equally valuable to the country. They need to develop such expertise, skill sets. Second thing, they have their land-based climate dependent profession protected against the now understand this thing, many of the Indian Tamilians living in Sri Lanka, they are involved into the plantation work. Now the point is that climate change is impacting all types of agriculture, plantations, everything. So they need to ensure this particular thing, that their profession is protected against adverse and erratic weather conditions. Okay, they need to develop the mitigation strategies in the times. Then the next thing is that They also need to understand that how they can change their work sites, work cycles, work styles in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic that is coming. Now even more zoonotic diseases, will come. So how they can protect themselves, okay, with these particular things, how they can protect their life cycles, how they can protect their businesses with such kind of things. The next thing that is there, basically, we have seen this particular thing that Sri Lanka has come out with many of the policies, okay, which were not very much logic based. For example, what happened last year, we have seen that Sri Lanka banned all the chemicals in the agriculture. They wanted to turn to the organic agriculture only nation. Now the Lankans who are in the plantation work, who are in the agriculture work, they need to ensure that how even with such kind of policy actions they can protect their occupation, okay. They have to ensure that their sector, the sector of the plantation work, is not vulnerable to the policy related adversity such as ban on the chemical fertilizer few months back. So they need to be ready to deal with these kind of changes also. And lastly, they need to recognize, or they need to understand how artificial intelligence can open new opportunities for the Indian Tamilian community in Sri Lanka. How they can use artificial intelligence, how they can use other scientific techniques, fine, for for further for further making their plantation work, for further making their economic activities more remunerative. Okay, this is all about that. Now, moving to the next article in this direction, India's first mRNA vaccine against Omicron approved. Okay, now guys, what is mRNA vaccine? mRNA stands for, now this article will see for GS paper number 3 science and science and technology, and for prelims also. mRNA. Now basically guys, understand this particular thing, that what actually a vaccine does. So basically vaccine tricks a person's immune system, to prepare the antibodies in advance, so that when a real infection, when the real virus will infect, already there will be the antibodies to fight with that particular viral infection or with that particular disease. Now we can do this particular thing by certain different ways. For example, what can be done? The live weakened form of virus can be administered in a person's body through the vaccine. For example, guys, when we talk about the polio vaccine, what is polio vaccine? Polio vaccine is nothing but a actual polio virus that is being inducted in our body. Okay, but that is a very weak form of polio. But when that particular antigen will enter in your body, your immune system will be triggered. It will prepare the antibodies in advance, so that future it is helpful for your immune system to deal with it. But there is another way also. Rather than administering the real virus, there is another way also, that is using the mRNA vaccine, that is the messenger RNA. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the COVID, you might have seen that there are these spikes on the COVID. Okay. Now this particular spike protein is responsible. Now understand this thing, in our human cell, there is one receptor by the name of ACE2. ACE2. So this, what happens on the human cell, this ACE2 receptor is there. Now the spikes in the COVID virus, they interlock with this ACE2 receptor and they transmit their genetic material in the cell, and then cell starts to make the copies and copies of this particular virus. Now, what is this mRNA vaccine? mRNA vaccine, okay, it is a kind of a messenger. Basically, these vaccines, okay, these vaccines will contain the code just for the spikes, okay, just for the spike protein that is there in the COVID virus. So for that spike protein, they will register a code in our cells. Our cells will automatically make just these spikes, and when these spikes will be identified within the system, our immune system will be triggered, and our immune system will prepare the antibodies. It will prepare the antibodies to kill this spike protein. and then the antibodies will be prepared. So in this way, we will be ready. Now the mRNA vaccines are more advanced because they are harmless. Okay, there is a possibility 0.0001% possibility is there that live virus can impact you, but here no live virus is being administered. So these vaccines are the most safest, but the problem is that storing this vaccine is very problematic because they have to be stored at sub-zero temperatures. Okay, now guys, India, first of all, what has happened recently, this Gemcovac vaccine, this is particularly for the Omicron variant, which has been cleared by the Drug Controller General of India. Now this vaccine is prepared by the Genova Biopharmaceuticals. Now Geneva Biopharmaceuticals, this is the second mRNA vaccine of them. Earlier they got approval of the Gemcovac 19. Now the Gemcovac 19 is the COVID vaccine. This Gemcovac OM is specifically for the Omicron. Now the vaccine is not available for commercial available. The best thing is that it can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius in the ordinary refrigerators. You are not required to store it in some specialized kind of refrigerators. Clear? And then the next thing is that they can also be administered without the syringe. They can also be administered without the syringe. Okay. So basically, so there is this PharmaJet system. What is PharmaJet system? So PharmaJet system is a kind of a device which will simply be impressed on your skin, and that vaccine will be administered in your muscle without the injection system. Okay. So this is something fine with respect to this. Then moving on to the next article, nearly these many babies have been adopted in the 9 months. Now, you are not required to go and see the number of the children that have been adopted. But one important thing is there which you need to understand. Basically, guys, this article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2, social justice, children related issues. So what happened last year, government passed the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Amendment Act 2021. As per this particular new amendment, DM, district magistrate, were given the power to pass the adoption order. Okay, now understand this thing. A prospective adoptive parent, first of all, who can adopt a child in India? A married couple in a stable marriage, they can adopt a child of any gender. Single male parent can adopt a child only of male gender. Single female parent can adopt a child of any gender. Okay, this is something. Now understand this thing, the prospective adoptive parents for adoption, they can apply to the Child Adoption Resource Agency. Okay, Child Adoption Resource Authority, they can apply, which is a body under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Now basically earlier system was this, that adoption order is to be passed by the court. Adoption order is to be passed by the court. But the court already, they are so much of overburdened. They were taking so much of time in passing the adoption order. So it was taking 3-4 years for getting the adoption completed. But with this Juvenile Justice Amendment Act of 2021, what had happened? DM has been given the power that they can now issue the adoption order, and the courts are not required to do that particular thing. Moreover, DM has also been given the power to evaluate the functioning of the child protection units. Now, child protection units are the bodies which have to rescue the children who are abandoned and orphan, and these children are then to be presented for the adoption. So they are working of Child Welfare Committee, Juvenile Justice Board, to see whether they are working properly or not. The power has been given to the DM now. So with this, an improvement has come and more adoptions have been done in just 9 months, 2,300 children. So this is something good with respect to the adoption patterns in India. Okay. And now taking up the main practice question for today. So the government's 2022 semiconductor mission is laudable. In the context, explain the need for promoting semiconductor industry so much. Now this art question will see with respect to the GS paper number 3. It will be a 10-marker question. So that is all about it. And with this, we come to an end to the news and to the today's newspaper analysis. I hope you have understood and liked it. Thank you so much.